Emily and this is Kapowski Reads. I recently started a new book and realised that it was the lowest rated book on my TBR. The lowest rated book that I already own. And I've seen a lot of vlogs where people read the highest and the lowest rated books on their Goodreads, so I thought that I would join in. So the highest rated book on my Goodreads TBR was The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osman, with an average rating of 4.47 stars and over 66,000 ratings. My lowest rated book was Adults by Emma Jane Unsworth, with 3.31 stars and just over 10,000 ratings. There's quite a difference between the number of people who have rated each book, so I was quite excited to see the difference between my enjoyment of each of these books. The Man Who Died Twice is the second instalment of the Thursday Murder Club. I loved the Thursday Murder Club when I read it. I think 2020. I read it pretty shortly after it came out because I did pre-order The Man Who Died Twice based on that enjoyment, and I knew nothing about The Man Who Died Twice before putting in my pre-order. The main characters in this book are in their 70s and they enjoy trying to solve crimes, which is something that I just thought was so endearing and kind of old lady goals. And in this book, Elizabeth, one of the old ladies, sort of took the more prominent character role, and she received a letter from the past which sort of led the group into some risky dealings with stolen diamonds, gangs, mafia and espionage. It sounded really exciting, but it did seem a little different from the first book, which was more about the mystery. And for me, I enjoyed the first book because it was a mystery. I am not a huge fan of sort of spy novels. Obviously there are some that I do enjoy, but I was a little bit wary when I saw that this book was going down that route. I felt that some of the characters in this book were very different from the characters that I had grown to love in the first book, especially Elizabeth, and I would have to say she was my least favourite character in the first book. In the first book, there were lots of hints towards Elizabeth's mysterious past, and I loved that. Whereas in this book, sort of her past was confirmed, and I didn't enjoy that quite so much because I just thought it was too much of a, you know, a character who is brilliant at everything. Of course she is. Nobody loves a perfect character. Or I don't. I like my characters to have flaws. The plot of this book was completely unbelievable. Of course it was a wild concept, but there were parts of this book that I found myself reading and just sort of thinking, I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. It was supposed to be like just quite a lovely little book about elderly people solving crimes and mysteries, and that's what I wanted. But what I got was somebody coming out of retirement to show MI5 that she's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and I didn't love this book. I don't even know if I liked it. I found myself getting quite annoyed with it because there would be times when they were just too trusting of everybody and sharing information with people that they didn't really know, and then being surprised when they got betrayed. Oh, who could have foreseen this? Anyone who read it, I'm sure. Because rule number one of looking into something, whether you're dealing with spies or not, is don't trust everybody you meet. And these people were just going around trusting absolutely everybody with all of this top secret information, and I just got annoyed. My favourite characters in this series are Joyce and Ibrahim, and they barely featured in this book. Joyce was sort of Elizabeth's sidekick, but she had such a limited storyline in this book. And Abraham, he did have his own storyline, but I didn't enjoy the storyline that he was given. I didn't get what I had hoped I would have gotten from this book, and I was really disappointed because I really loved the first book, and it felt like everything that I loved from the first book just didn't really feature in the second. I also found that Elizabeth was a terrible, terrible spy. Terrible. I also know nothing about organised crime, but I'm still pretty sure that the bits that did feature organised criminals, yeah, felt just totally made up. And obviously it's a work of fiction. It was made up, but it felt that way. And I don't mind reading books where completely unrealistic things happen, but they have to be written in a way that I could believe that they would happen in that situation. And I just didn't buy anything that this book was selling me. I didn't believe in it. And I just got quite annoyed reading this. I ended up giving it 2 stars, and I was pretty gutted about that because, well, it was the highest rated book on my TBR, and it was one of the books that I was hoping and planning to read this year. I had even pre-ordered book 3 based on not even a title or a cover. I just pre-ordered it because I had loved the first one, and off the back of that I'd gone into pre-order second and then the third without even reading the second. I have now cancelled my pre-order because I don't like the direction that the series is going in. It seems to be going more in the sort of retirement home meets spy novel direction. I'm here for murder mysteries and older people having nice times. I'm not here for people trying to be spies. It's really not what I was expecting, or really, yeah. I just felt a little bit disappointed by this book. So with that in mind, let's move on to my lowest rated book from my TBR, which was Adults by Emma Jane Unsworth. And that was the book that made me want to even do this video. So this book was all about Jenny, who is in her mid-30s, and her life really isn't going in the direction that she thought it would be at this point in her life. She's struggling to pay her bills, having huge relationship issues with her friends, and just kind of her life is slowly falling apart. And then her mother moves in and hilarity ensues. I really enjoyed this book. I was surprised to see that it was the lowest rated on my TBR because I had heard so many good things about it, and I think it's quite a niche book because for me, I found so many parts of this book to be really relatable. Maybe not to me, but I could relate them to situations that my friends have been in, and I think that I really got something extra out of this book because of that. I really enjoyed reading about Jenny struggling with social media. It's something that I think is pretty common, or at least it feels common. I know a lot of people put limits on how much time they spend on social media because it gets in your brain and you find yourself just comparing yourself to other people who you feel like they have picture perfect lives because they've posted a snapshot of a moment that was probably curated and filtered to make it look perfect, but maybe it wasn't. And I thought that that was something that is quite an important narrative. Jenny was also struggling to deal with her breakup and moving on from that, and she was struggling to be a good friend. And I just thought that this raised so many sort of important topics, and I really warmed to Jenny. I don't think I would want to be her friend. I think she would drive me mad. But I did really start to care for her, and for Kelly and her mum Carmen. Just, she seemed absolutely wacky and I really enjoyed her. But again, if I knew her, she'd probably drive me mad. So the characters in this book were just really likeable, or at least endearing, and I wanted good things for them. I wanted to read more about them. I loved the format of this book. It was very short chapters, but it felt almost like a diary, sort of. And there would be email entries as well, and there were some quite short, snappy chapters that just, I felt like this was a very quick read. It was about 360 pages, something like that. I would say it was about an average length, but I just felt like I whizzed through it because it was so easy to read. And it was so funny. There were times that it was just so heartbreaking because she'd been through quite a traumatic event. But the majority of this book was hilarious and witty and just quite charming. I also think that from now on, I am going to be referring to McDonald's as the Scottish restaurant. That's what it's called in this book, and I love the idea of that. So yeah, I'm going with the Scottish restaurant. This book was so full of fun turns of phrase, and I really enjoyed it. Originally, when I was planning this video, I was umming and ahhing about whether I would give it 4 stars or give it 5, and now that I've rambled on about it, I have to give it 5 stars. I couldn't fault it. I really enjoyed this book, and I find it so strange that I read my highest and my lowest rated books and I thought the opposite. So my highest rated book I gave 2 and my lowest rated book I gave 5. So I think that was really interesting for me anyway, of finding out that just because a book is either highly or low rated, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna agree. So that was quite fun. I'm very glad to have found a new 5-star, and I do think that Adults is probably gonna be a new favourite for me. It's one of those books that just gives me something that I didn't know I was looking for. Thank you for watching. Bye!